Nancy Ruth Owens here, aka Reagan Second Shooter, Hoffa's Bomber, the real Zodiac. Uh, this is proof of life for November the 25th of 2020. Recent events to date this is apparently E-Clause's CEO Chris Hallett was murdered a couple of days ago. So one of the requests for information that I got was for information on the Pope. So this goes back to the 1980s. I want to say 81 or 82. I'm not really sure. I think it was Christmas of 81. Don't hold me to that. Anyway, certain events, the invention of crack cocaine in Henry County, Clewiston, Pablo's compound with me, Rivy, and JoJo being the originals, Rivy and JoJo being in the bedroom, me trying to create speed out of coke because I did not like the coke. I didn't understand the coke. It just simply didn't make sense to me why anybody would spend money on coke when they could get speed, amphetamines, if you don't know what that is. A lot easier. You don't sandblast your nose. I mean, you can actually lose your brain if you do enough cocaine. You can break through membranes and your brain can actually start to come out. No, some of you might not believe it, but trust me, it can happen. It can definitely happen. So that had happened, and when I exposed to Rivy the murder of Sermon Sr., proving that I was not with a piece of paper in my word saying I was not sitting in the dispatcher's seat at the sheriff's department when Sermon was murdered. He was actually murdered 3 hours prior to it being reported. So that was done by Sermon Jr. That was his decision to do that, because he was certainly there when this took place. So that led to, because Sermon Jr. and Sr. were partnered with Pablo Escobar, along with a lot of these politicians. Pablo took it. There was a Christmas party, and it was one of Pablo's parties where he would give out cocaine, watches, rolls of money, and I had been invited to this because Rivy and I, the falling out wasn't my choice, it was his choice. So it's kind of hard to explain when you kind of break ties. It's not something, you repeatedly break ties. It's not something you can, put your faith in. So I remember being at the party. I remember Olivia, aka Griselda Blanco II, being there. This is not COVID, people. I've got a cat, and I have allergies. And if it were up to me, I'd have no animals whatsoever. So anyway, the party was primarily Hispanics, and I think I was one of the few Americans that was there. So it turned bad because Pablo had asked me a question, and basically, did I want to continue to be with Rivi? And I was like, you know, Rivi makes a commitment and then he breaks it, like repeatedly over and over. He breaks it. So, no, I mean, I had wanted Rivi to help me get rid of Sermon Dias Jr. I was sick and tired of basically being a slave to Sermon. And, that started when I was 7 years old. So, Rivi had said, was not going to do it. So I had attempted to recruit Chino Delgado for it. And also, Rivi's younger brother at some point, so at some later point, I tried to recruit him. So anyway, Christmas party, he had asked me if I wanted to stay with Rivi, and I was like, no, it's too iffy. And my ultimate goal again was to get rid of Sermon Dias Jr. Again, Rivi had made it clear he wasn't going to have any part of that. So I knew that before I could have a life of my own in any way, shape, or form, I had to get rid of Junior. When it came to doing assassinations, I thought I was one of several, and hindsight being 2020, I'm realizing that I must have been the primary. The when certain assassinations needed to be done, I apparently was the first choice, because I had already done Hoffa, JFK Jr., and Reagan. So when all this was going on, one of the things that Sermon would say, and I would say, I picked it up because it's true, whether they're a politician, law enforcement, any sort of authority, they're no different from you and I. They put their pants on one leg at a time. And so when it came to doing high profile assassinations, it was they're just a human being. They're no different from anybody else. So apparently, again, hindsight being 2020, I was the go-to for these high profile assassinations, which of course pay high dollars. And so, like I said, I knew Sermon was never going to let me go. Pablo is not. Pablo like property. Pablo recognized me as being property to Sermon Dias Jr. And so during this Christmas party, he had asked me if I wanted to be with Rivi, and I was like, no, I'll explore other options. I know that as far as loyalty goes, Rivi was not capable of being loyal to me like I was prepared to be loyal to him. So I ended up being literally buried in a coffin in the horse field. So this, I remember being in the coffin. There's certain events that took place before this and after this, but I'm trying to cut to the chase of what led up to the shooting of the Pope, or what was supposed to have been the Pope. So, trying to give y'all enough of a background, but there's certainly more details that led up to this. So, bottom line, I was buried in a coffin, and I had a lighter, and I had cigarettes, and I don't care how many movies you watch, you're not going to light up a cigarette in a coffin and smoke it. It is not going to happen. Not unless you are like extremely intoxicated, because I mean, no matter how intoxicated you are, your survival kicks in. You know there's only so much air in there, and you know your air is going to run out. You're not going to contaminate it with cigarette smoke. Likewise, like I said, I did fortunately have a lighter, and also knowing that lighter, I don't know how long I'm going to be in this coffin, and therefore my lighter needs to last as long as possible. So I remember flicking it, looking around the perimeters of the box, seeing a weakness in the coffin, because one of the nails had missed its mark and was sticking out. So I knew that was the weak point of the coffin. So if I was going to have any hope of getting out, that was the place I was going to have to focus on. So, long story short, I didn't manage to get out, because I was quite small at that time, and 127 pounds, 5'2". So I got out, and then as I got out, I was also helped out by two other individuals that were there, Americans. So and I forgot, there was a dead body, a decayed body that was put on top of me. Again, this is with the sheriff's department watching, knowing the whole time that all this stuff, and Mike Zula more, knowing the whole time all this stuff is happening, all these horrors are happening, but they're not putting a stop to it. So, I mean, this is one of the horrific things I had to go through. Just had to go through. They say, well, you show no remorse in anything. Well, you it was as down and dirty as you could possibly imagine. I mean, Silence of the Lambs is based on the true story of these events. So anyway, this being buried alive, and being buried alive, I mean, of course I was alarmed throughout all of these events, but being, literally covered in a decayed body. I don't know whose decayed body. All I remember is somebody bringing the cardboard box with the decayed body, saying this cost $100 or 100 miles. $100 or 100 miles. I don't remember what. I remember the 100, but I don't remember if they had to travel 100 miles to get it, or if it was $100 that they had to pay, presumably a graveyard keeper to do this. I just don't remember. It's one of the blanks that has not filled in yet. So that was the alarm that set me to seek help at the Catholic Church. Now, my non-biological aunt had run after giving me to Sir Dice Jr. at age 7, ran away from the Presbyterian Church, which we were all a part of, the diocese and the Owens family, ran away to the Catholic Church. So it wasn't because my aunt was there. It was knowing that with the Catholic Church, they had a box that you could go into and do these confessions. Who doesn't know about that, right? It's common knowledge that this is a practice of the Catholic Church. And so I was thinking, well, maybe I can get some help from the Catholic Church, and using the confession box, which would give me anonymity, I suppose you could say, privacy, to talk to someone without raising too much suspicion. So I remember going to the Catholic Church, I guess one of their services, and then waiting until everybody was gone, everybody's out of the confession booth, and I was the last one in there. And when I was in there, I said, I need to speak to the Pope. I didn't want to entrust this information to anybody in Clewiston, anybody in the Catholic Church who came from Clewiston. I wanted an outsider. You understand what I'm saying? An outsider of Clewiston, or what I perceived to be an outsider of Clewiston, to come in and listen to my stories and maybe be able to do something, put a stop to it. And so this individual made arrangements to, said that the Pope would be there that weekend. So I went, and I went into the office, and I said, is he coming? Is he here? And the guy was like, he looked at me like he had forgotten the whole thing. And I was like, I need to talk to him. I've got something very important to say, and I'm not going to trust this information to anybody but the Pope. Okay? So, unfortunately, because of what was supposed to have been confidential information, must have apparent. This is where I'm trying to put two and two together, because it's only logical that somehow, some way, the information got back to the sheriff, to Sermon Dice Jr. So I can't remember if he was the sheriff at this time or a deputy. So anyway, I was insistent, and they took me seriously. And the next weekend, what was supposed to have been the Pope showed up. I was in the church pews waiting, and this individual, this kind of hefty individual, came through. He was Catholic, wearing the Catholic robes. He came up on the right-hand side. But by this time, what had happened is Sermon Dice Jr. had found out, and I was given orders by Sermon Dice Jr. to shoot the Pope. It's either you do that or else. It was... So, so what was supposed to have been help turned out to be, turned into an order to assassinate the Pope. So this individual came up to the right-hand side of the pews and started walking towards me. And that's when I pulled out a gun, and he started to pull out a gun as well. So I remember him having a look of surprise on his face. And if I recall, he went from his left hand to his right side. He did not go from his right, he used his right hand. So whoever this individual was apparently was left-handed or skilled with a gun left-handed. So I shot him. He fell back, and his eyes were wide open, and that's when I knew he was dead. And so, of course, the noise brought out several individuals, one of which was a nun. I don't remember her name, but I remember looking at her and saying, I'm sorry, I didn't want to do this. I have orders. This was not how I wanted this to go down. And then, and then leaving. So, somehow, some way, it was decided that this was not the Pope. And Pablo, I remember going to Pablo and saying, well, what was it? I think I said, did I shoot the Pope? Did I get him? Or is he, did I succeed in this assassination? And I think Pablo said no, but that's okay, because a week later we got the Pope. And it was around that time that the Pope was starting to go around in his bubble machine because of an assassination. So the one I shot was a lot younger than the one who was going around in the bubble machine, and who through the years went through the bubble machine. But if you look at pictures of the one I shot and the Pope at that time, they're like nearly identical. And I said to someone that I was talking about this, it looks like that's the Pope's son. And just, because I'm not Catholic, I didn't realize that, they're supposedly they don't have children. But there was an undeniable, uncanny resemblance from the younger man I shot and the Pope, one of the popes, the Pope. So who the guy was, I don't know. Was he an actual Pope? Was he a representative of a Pope? Was he the son of the Pope? I mean, he had to be maybe a brother. No, wouldn't have been brother. Maybe a nephew. Yeah, could possibly a nephew. I mean, they look, other than the difference in their years, they were pretty much identical. So, anyway, so this video is Proof of Life, 11/25, November the 25th of 2020, and it takes me a while to get ready to sit down and talk about some of these things. So this was a request by someone who had, apparently wanted information about 3 weeks ago. If you have requests, I might not get to it immediately. I might not be able to talk about it immediately. I have to be in a certain mental space, to even come close to talking about these events. I just don't like losing. And even though I succeeded in killing Dias Sr., Dias Jr., Pablo, they're succeeding in life, and then there's failing in life, and I went to college, got a degree in journalism, and was never able to work as a journalist. And so I just, that's basically failure. If what can you do? If you're gonna go out there and be a news reporter, or newspaper reporter, broadcast reporter, depending on your material, there's always a chance that they could assassinate you. It's like, I think it's a more dangerous job than being a cop, except for, these days it's getting pretty rough for these cops. But, so this is the information I have on the shooting of the Pope. That's I pretty much have covered it. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything as far as the shooting of the Pope. So it would have been in 82, I do believe. It had to have been in 82, in the early, probably January of 1982, but don't hold me to that. My timelines are really, Anyway, Nancy Owens. So, I think if there's anything else. No, pretty much covers it. Okay, y'all have a good day.